So, Commander Dr. Ali Heydari, thank you for being a part of Extra Time Friday. Are you nervous?
Not at all.
Oh, that's good. You should have been nervous. I did notice you are a commander and a doctor, so which two is the hierarchy, so to speak?
They're probably about equal.
Equal, yeah.
Yeah. Complement each other.
The fact that you've got a doctor in it, yes, you're doing a lot of studying.
Yes, I love studying, love reading, love learning about things. So, I have a doctorate, really interested in domestic abuse actually, and the service that we provide to people. So that's what my doctorate was all about.
Did you have to study to that level to get into the position for domestic violence?
No. The vast majority of people at my rank in the police force don't have the qualifications that I have. I've done it purely because I'm interested in
I like that little dig. I just need I've got the levels. So look, we're doing this show because we want to celebrate black women and celebrating while they're here. And as we know that there's a relationship between the black community, and we normally hear it from a male perspective. And I've met you a couple of times, and instantly energy is just great. So I want people to know that who you are, because when we spoke off camera when we first met, got to know your background and your likes and dislikes. So look, Ali Heydari, Guyanese.
Yes, yeah.
All right. When was the last time you been to Guyana?
Oh, years and years ago. Last time I went to Guyana was when I was 4.
Okay.
So that's a long time ago, as you can imagine.
Yeah, about 20 years ago.
But my both parents from Guyana, they met in London, and I was born in London.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is there any, because Guyana, as in, it's South American, but it's still under like the West Indian, Caribbean diaspora, so to speak. So how much of those practices do you still carry out in the home or growing up, do you remember?
So growing up, most definitely, mainly around food. So one thing you need to know about me is that I'm really serious about my food. So we had a lot of cooking going on in my house. Both my mum and my dad were massive foodies and loved cooking. So we had a lot of cooking around Guyanese food all over the world actually. And of course we had people from Guyana coming over to stay. My parents went back to Guyana a couple of times, and mainly it was actually around food, but my parents were very community based and they had a lot of community relations and friends in the Guyanese community, and I still keep in touch with them up until this day. So yeah.
So yeah, because Clive Lloyd, because of my father, obviously knew Guyanese and ex-West Indies captain and manager. So yeah, is he like a massive hierarchy in your household, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. My father was a friend of Clive Lloyd and had all sorts of Guyanese friends. So, yeah, my dad talked about him, deceased unfortunately now, but talked about him quite often.
Yeah.
And he came to the house a couple of times, and yeah, wow. It was good. It was good. Yeah, really good.
Obviously, you're policing here in the UK. How do you think the policing in the Caribbean is compared to because it is based off of English policing? I mean, when you've gone back, how do you see it? How do you feel it is?
I've never really thought about it, to be honest. I do think that there is something very British about what we do. Obviously, it is British in the UK.
Yeah.
I think when we compare policing internationally, there is just something very, very unique around that relationship with communities. And although I think we do have a long way to go with certain communities, especially black communities in the UK, I think things have got better over the last 30, 40 years. And it is interesting to compare. So I did actually do a little bit of teaching in New York, international criminal justice, looking at different police forces. I think possibly in Barbados they tend to use a bit more force than we would use.
In Barbados?
Yeah.
Yeah, that depends on this, as you know, there's different levels. So when I was in Barbados, my cousins just said to me, you see the ones in the all blue? Don't play with them one day. They were, but it's the guys with the truncheons. And what I what was really eye-opener for me going to Barbados is that the police, you see police playing dominoes with the local people, and it's like when you come here, it's like, okay, you can get in trouble for that, possibly, you know what I mean, hanging around with youths, but they are very much a part of the community. Is that something you would like to see go moving forward with the UK police, and not just black police, UK police?
Yeah, with UK police, I think we put a lot of resources into our neighbourhood teams, as you probably know. Definitely in the Met, we've got really big neighbourhood teams and have recently put a lot of resources, more resources into our town centre teams. I would like to see a lot of progression around building long-term relationships. So we do have some long-term relationships which are very good, but I think we need to develop that a lot more, especially with the black community.
What I would say is that we see policing and relationships with the communities from a male perspective. You are a female, you are a high-ranking officer, female, black officer. First, do you like to be called a black female officer, or just
Absolutely.
an officer?
Black female.
Black female.
Yeah.
And I think that that has a general ring to it, because it shows that, look, you guys are, no pun intended, but you guys are representing as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that a lot more black females can follow in your footsteps?
Absolutely. So when I look at black females within policing, so for example in the Met, right now black females represent only 1.1% of police officers in the Met. We definitely need more of them. I joined up 21 years ago, and I joined policing to see whether or not I liked it, and within a very short period of time I knew that I liked it. I didn't know then, 21 years ago, that I would end up now as the most senior black female police officer in the UK. And I would like to see more black females join policing, because I think we need to have that diversity of thought within policing. We need to be able to look at problems and solve problems from different perspectives. And I think this is nothing against men at all, as you know, but I think I think women see things in different ways.
I would tend to agree
differently.
I would tend to agree with you.
And we need more of that within policing, to really think broadly about problems and find solutions in different ways, reach out to communities, really build relationships with them. And that's not to say that white officers can't do that, but we need to have that diversity within policing, because the whole tenet of policing is that the public are the police and the police are the public. And we need more diversity.
One of the things that I've noticed as well is that society concentrates on black men and the relationship with black men with other ethnicities. But I've also noticed as well that how black women are treated in the workplace, and most importantly, acknowledged in the workplace. So how do you feel the Metropolitan Police acknowledges black women in the workplace of different roles?
So I think within the Met especially, we have lots of different support for black, if you're talking about black women specifically.
Yeah, black women specifically.
We've got, network of women. We've got officers who are supporting and mentoring our black females. We've got a lot of support around getting black women ready for promotion and for lateral development. So I think there are enormous opportunities within the Met for black females. And I would really like to see lots of black females coming behind me to take my place when I retire, because I'm going to go from policing at some point. And it would give me the greatest joy to see more women coming into the police service and developing, even if they want to develop laterally. But I think for promotion purposes, we need to see ourselves in an organisation. And if we don't see ourselves in an organisation, I think it's less likely that we will want to join that organisation. So I would see more of me in policing. That would be fantastic.
So you've been in policing over 20 years now, yeah?
Yeah.
What did you do before?
So I worked in various offices. I worked for local councils. I worked in a job centre at some point. So it was like admin stuff that I was doing. But I do have an arts background actually. So after I did my A-levels, I went to Chelsea Art School. I love drawing big paintings, oil paintings. So it's a little bit of a strange thing that I had an arts background and then ended up in policing. That's actually quite rare.
Have you designed your own office then? Take that one down, I'll draw one myself. That's a sister trait.
I love art. I love galleries. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I'm actually quite introvert, actually. So that's the kind of thing I like. Love skiing, love horse riding. I do a lot of activities outside of work. But actually, when I am in work, my passion is in policing, especially community engagement.
So there's the question then. So I've always wanted to ask most black officers, like, with that transition, what was it about the police? What, just, was you walking somewhere? Was you in a gallery? You saw a leaflet? What triggered you to say, you know what, I'm going to inquire about joining the police?
So I saw a tiny, Quincy, you would not, if you blinked, you wouldn't have even seen this advert in the local paper. My husband and I were in Hampshire at the time, living there, and I saw a tiny advert, and I'd been in a job, an admin job, for about 4 years, and I was looking for a new challenge. And I saw this tiny advert, and it said Hampshire Police are looking for police officers. And up until that point, I had never, ever even considered joining the police. And I joked to my husband, I said, oh, James, these I've seen this advert, tiny advert, it's advertising for police. And he said, I think you'd be really good. And I said, you must be joking. And then there was a little bit of a tick box.
There's a reason why you said that. That's a long hours.
No, but he did say, actually, there's shift work. But I know you get bored easily, Ali, so you will go into a job every day. You won't really know exactly what you're going to do every day. It's going to be different every day. You're going to be serving communities, so that goes back to my kind of values with my parents. And as he went through these tick boxes, I thought to myself, actually, I might look into this. So I went to my local station, went on a ride-along, and I came back from this ride-along and I said, James, this is absolutely amazing. This is what they did. It was really good. I went for a second ride-along, and then it's at that point I thought, I'm going to apply for the police and I'm going to join. And I did. I joined the police. I went to Hampshire. I ended up at Southampton Central Police Station as my first station, and I absolutely loved it. It was absolutely amazing.
Where did you go to train? Because over in London they go Hendon.
Yeah, so I went to Ashford.
Ashford.
And do you know what, Quincy? That was one of the biggest challenges for me at the time. You had to go to Ashford for 15 weeks.
Ashford, Kent?
Yeah, in Kent. You came back at the weekends, but that was a whole week away from my family. So at that point, we had 2 girls. And that was the biggest challenge for me, is actually leaving my family at that time. It's very, very different now. Much more family friendly in the way in which you do your training and stuff. But I stuck it out. And I knew very, very quickly that that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to stay and make a career of it. And I'm here 21 years later. Yeah,
like so solid 21 seconds ago. So when you done your training, you've clearly passed and qualified to become a police officer. That transition, did you have to talk to your family, your close family and friends?
Yeah.
And how did you sit them down, like, to say, look, I'm going to vote Conservative? How do you prepare your family? Because there is a knock-on effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you prepare your family for that?
So I did sit down and I had a chat with them. They were really supportive. My husband has been absolutely amazing throughout my whole career, because it's involved at some point going abroad, and sometimes long hours, not always, but sometimes. The only concern was that my mum was scared about me actually being out on the streets and the safety aspect of it.
Did you mind that, Mum, I'm Guyanese? It's vested in me, don't feel to fix it.
But that was the only concern, actually. There were some of my mum's older friends who kind of had a bit of a chuckle and said, oh yeah, that would suit Ali down to the ground, you know, going around and bossing people around and all that stuff. Yeah. And they had their Guyanese jokes about that. But actually, a lot of support, and larger support from the community as well.
I was going to say, well, I am going to say, it's, as a mum, did you think about what you're, because being a police officer, especially as a black officer,
yeah,
there's the stigma.
Yeah.
And even me, like when I find that I've got some friends that like, tell me I'm going to be police, it's like, I do look at like the black conservatives and like, what do you, so did you worry about how people would view your children? Something went for you?
I didn't worry about that, and actually that was well founded because my children have had no issues at all with any of their friends because I'm a police officer. That hasn't ever been an issue for them. And actually, they have been very proud and have been going around bragging, oh, my mum was a police officer. So, yeah, they've had no issues at all.
Yeah, I'll be like, yeah, my mum's a doctorate. I'll be begging it because she's a doctor. And a regular police, a doctorate police and an artist. So you're in the force now. What kind of... can you remember your first day on... Was you on beat?
Yeah, I was a beat officer. And I can remember my first day, Quincy, putting on my uniform and looking about 100 times in the mirror before I went out, thinking, and at that time we went out on our own.
On your own?
Yeah, in Hampshire you go out on your own. Things have changed a little bit now.
Yeah, I forget sometimes it's not London straight away because I've never seen a police by themselves in London.
Yeah.
Well, Hampshire?
So that's how we did it then. And every now and again, you'd go past a shop front and you'd look and you think, oh my God, that's me wearing a uniform. And actually, the impact on communities was incredible because I actually used to have some people stopping and talking to me, like stopping in their cars and saying, I've never seen a black female officer before. God, this is really inspiring. Tell me that, you know, I had some people ask me, how do I join up? You know, what's been your experience?
These are fellow black people.
So these are black and Asian people just stopping me. So I used to do the beat in an area called St Mary's, which was very, very diverse, and it clearly had an impact on people to see a black person in uniform, because of course that 21 years ago it was even rarer then, especially in Hampshire.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot now, but it had a huge positive effect just by the presence of seeing somebody in a black person in uniform.
That comes down to like culturally identifying.
Yeah.
And it should go down the road of, if I'm in trouble, if I feel unsafe, I've got a black person to say, look, they should be able to relate. So that's your first day. Give me your first. What was your first arrest like? Without going into much detail.
Oh gosh,
was it traumatizing?
I could feel my heart going. I could really feel my heart going. I arrested someone for assault, and at that time I was with my mentor, and I could feel my heart going and thinking, I'm going to forget the words. It's all going to go wrong. It all went swimmingly actually, and at that time you would take them back to your prisoner back to the station. Took my prisoner back to Southampton Central, booked him in and everything, and got a charge out of that. But
what does that mean? You get bonus points? Was
yeah.
Got a charge 5%. What does that mean?
So that man was charged for assault.
Okay.
So he went to court and he was found guilty and all of that. But I can remember at the time just my heart beating. You know, we can feel it in your ears. And obviously as you get more practice, it just becomes what you do. But it was, I remember all those kind of firsts in policing, how exciting and kind of nerve-wracking it was. But you just face those things, you face your fears and you face your challenges and you get over them and you practice and you become a better police officer for it. And it's during that first 2 years as a probationer that I learnt so much, and it's during that time that someone said to me, there's a leadership programme that you can go on. I applied for that leadership programme run by the Home Office, I got onto that programme.
Yeah, because I was going to say, in the role you were doing, as in child abuse and domestic violence stuff, you're going to be coming across a lot of cases which could be emotionally like damaging to your energy.
Yeah.
So how do you switch off?
So my husband is amazing. I've got to say that I've got a really good support mechanism around me. So I've got support within the force as well as outside. My husband's incredible. I've got some very close friends who I speak to. And as I said before to you, I use up all my leave every year. I love my travel. I love my skiing. Husband and I ski a lot. And I'm mad about horses and dogs. So I go out and ride horses.
Who's the dogs?
So
what's the dogs situation?
Oh, the dogs at home.
Oh,
shepherds.
Oh, good dogs.
Yeah.
Good dogs.
Walking.
Walking dogs. Oh, yeah, okay.
So it's.
I thought he was racing them. I wanted to get some confession that I fight my dogs. Yeah, she's 4-0.
So
German Shepherd's good dogs. They're good dogs. Yeah.
So I spend my time really relaxing and doing stuff that I really like.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to find a work-life balance. You know what I mean? And the fact that you're doing things like horse riding, walking the dogs, and that is very therapeutic.
Yeah.
So it's complete opposite in seeing a traumatic case and stuff like that. We see a lot of images of American police and how they handle things. How much do you think you guys get the blame for how Americans handle their policing in their communities?
I actually think that most members of the public understand that American policing is really nothing like UK policing. We have much more developed neighbourhood teams, for example, much more developed relationships, positive relationships with communities. I spent 6 months in New York teaching, and it's during that time that I was really able to have a look at the culture of policing, and I can tell you now that it's completely different. The death of George Floyd really puts a very, very interesting lens, quite rightly, on UK policing. And I've got to say that I would never ever want to get anywhere near where the US is now with their relationships, which I think is why I'm so passionate about making sure that we develop our community relations with as many new initiatives as we possibly can. Got some really good practice out there, really looking at that practice and see how that can be shared more widely across the Met, and ensuring that we involve our black communities in formulating our own policies and practice. So really pulling them into discussions around problem solving so that we are co-creating that solution rather than thinking of ways in which we're going to do something and then kind of doing it to black communities, actually involving black communities in that problem solving.
One of my issues is, as much as building relationships, what I struggled with, and probably a lot of the black community struggled with, that you had whether white men, white women coming into our community saying, "Oh, yeah, we can build our relationship," and we weren't seeing black officers who we could probably relate to. So, like I said, outside of this, we've spoken about our West Indian heritage and stuff like that. So, if I saw you on the road, or there's a relationship, there's a conversation there. Even if you was on the beat, we could talk about food or something like that. And I think it wasn't like it was like, oh, I can't identify with you. So, would you say it's even more important now for black officers to reach out to the black community?
Absolutely. But do you know what, Quincy? I think it's not just on black officers. So I know some white officers who are doing some incredible things in black communities and have really gained their trust. And when you look at the relationships that they have with them, I think those black communities understand that those white officers are authentically wanting to reach out, and that's the difference, where they can see that they really mean it, that they want to make a difference in their communities, and so those relationships have been built up. So I think it's for all officers to do that. Engagement is everyone's business. It's not just for black officers or just for white officers. If you are a police officer, whatever your background, my view is that you've got a responsibility to build relationships with all communities.
I like that. She's done there. She's been trained. She's been trained. That was a proper press answer. I think that we should all kumbaya, my lord.
I actually really think that.
No, I do. No, it's true. Social media has come into the world.
Yeah.
How much has that affected policing?
Oh, massive impact. You have something that happens on the street and can be just either rightly or wrongly represented, but that footage can just go all over the world in a second. It really opens up people's eyes as to what's happening on the streets. But I think social media is actually a really good channel for us to use, and maybe we don't use it enough. Especially when you're looking at social media, which is really, really diverse. The communities that we can get in touch with and message and to get feedback from is huge. So social media has got its good and bad points, but actually I think it's got more good than bad. And we need to exploit it more.
Does social media footage can it be used in court as evidence?
Absolutely.
Oh, we can, yeah? So when people put their phones, or like watching someone get arrested, or they might feel that can be used.
That can be used as evidence.
So once it goes on social media, doesn't it like more or less? It's because there's a subconscious bias. If say I witness an incident and I film it, and I'm putting it out, you don't always see the full.
No, you don't.
So that's why I asked, can it be used? So for example, I remember there was one time I saw an incident, not me, but it was on social media, of a policeman holding a young black kid, and you just saw him rough him up, and then I was like, look at this, oh my god, like most people freaking out, and then when you saw the full video, the brother had a big axe.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's little things like that. When it goes on social media, there could be a subconscious bias. And
I think people need to understand and realise that what they see on social media is not necessarily the full picture. So yes, it can be used in court, but it needs to be triangulated with all the other information that we've got. Witnesses who say what happened, the body-worn video, the social media, all comes together and triangulated to give a fuller picture of what's happened. Because I do think it can be damaging and it can be inaccurate if you just rely on the social media itself on its own.
So look, the Metropolitan Police has been taking for the last good few years the institutionally racist, homophobic, especially with the pictures coming out of the two sisters and that. How are the police or the Met trying to turn that around, that attitude, that lack of trust, especially with Clarissa Dick resigning?
Yeah. So I always start from the position that behaviour is unacceptable, it's got no place in policing at all. And that is the Met stance as well. There's a lot of activity, lots of resources, and extra resources have gone into places like our professional standards department to kind of really dial up our review of cases where people make complaints and make sure that we've responded appropriately. We've got briefings that have been sent out to all our staff, reminding them of their expectations and the oath that they've given to serve communities and the professional standards that we expect of them. And we have ongoing leadership inputs as well around professionalism, and to remind our officers and our staff about the values that are expected of them. I think that because we have asked people now to, so what we've said to our staff and officers is that you cannot stand by. If you see that something's wrong, or you feel that something's wrong, you have to report it. Absolutely. And I think maybe that's where we've been going a little bit wrong, where people have been sometimes afraid to report bad behaviour. And we have really dialed that up and said that there is an expectation. If you see that something's wrong, you have to report it in. So I think it's possible that we will see more reports coming in, which I think is actually a good sign that people now honestly recognise that they have to say something, so that we can get rid of the bad influence within the police service, because there's no place for it. I believe in my heart that the vast majority of officers and staff come to work to do a good job. That's what they do. And it is spoiled by that minority of people.
Yeah, it's really, for me, it's like listening to you speak about the small minority, and it's the same people say about the black community. I mean, this might be a small minority, or of a football club, there's always a small minority in everything, and it doesn't get called out. So the Met is encouraging officers to report. How many WhatsApp groups did you come out of after attackers?
All my WhatsApp groups are totally good, I can tell you that.
I ain't gonna lie to you, I've come out of a few WhatsApp groups because then you realise, I never realised that so and so is...
Yeah.
And it's like things that I don't put in there.
Yeah.
Because that could be used as evidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what come out in groups,
Absolutely.
man. That come out in groups. So it's for me, like we're going to be having a working relationship because you've got Behind the Badge, which has been brought to my attention last year. I've interviewed a few black officers on my radio programme.
The only way that you can build a relationship with the police, I think, is to see the police as not just a badge or a uniform, but there is actually something behind that. We are real people. We have real challenges. We've got families. We've got fears. There are things about our job that we like. There are things about our job that we don't like. And the whole idea about Behind the Badge is that you get two people from policing really just talking freely about all of those things. And then people get to see that we are like everyone else. We just happen to wear a uniform during the day. And that's what it's all about.
As I know, well, I'm part of Behind the Badge.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll be putting it out there and trying to build the best relationship. For me, I just want to know that when I'm out of my house, my children are safe and my family and friends, and they can turn to an officer, especially an officer of colour. But most importantly, they can culturally identify with them. And even to that point, sometimes, so I'm doing mentoring. You can give a young, give them a look, like to say, listen, just like, don't shut me down, don't say nothing. And I think those little cultural things that we can definitely improve on Behind the Badge. Look, Commander Dr. Ali, I really appreciate you taking time. I know you're mad busy, you know what I mean? Have you got anything special for International Women's Month?
Well, I have got quite a few invitations to speak during the month, like I do in October for Black History Month, and I'm going to be doing some professional development for myself next week as well. So, professional
development?
Yeah.
Is that a posh word for...
Going on a course.
Stay in my yard. Stay in my yard. Work from home. Right, lastly, the camera's there. They said to you, right, we want to attract more black people to the police force. That's the whole black community behind there. What would you say to them?
Do you want me to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I would say, come on a ride along. Come on a ride along and see what we do, speak to some black officers, understand what the challenges are, what the good things about policing are, because it is an amazing career. I've been in policing for 21 years and the things that I've experienced are just out of this world. Please come and talk to us. Take part in some of our events, Behind the Badge, as Quincy talked about. But come on a ride along. It's 2 hours out of your life just to see what we do.
Tell them how good the pension is.
The pension is fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.